Now on this channel, I've found it very difficult to find debates with right-wing people, like right-wing British people. There's no right-wing British political streamers at all. I can't find any. If you know of any right-wing British political streamers, please put me in touch. I literally haven't got a clue. I've never found any of them at all. But there are a couple of British political content creators who are from the younger generation. These people got famous on TikTok specifically and have now been picked up by GB News, Talk TV, Turning Point UK, all of the big kind of griftathon industries who have loads of spare money to be able to pump into cultural projects to be able to manufacture consent of people on the internet, right? As I've said previously on this channel, when my segment about John Cleese on GB News, in this GB News thing, that what Talk TV and GB News are for is about being able to change perceptions and to be able to create viral moments on the internet. They're not for gaining terrestrial TV ratings in the same way that, BBC, ITV, Channel 4 are. They have a completely different business model, not just on the way that they generate revenue, but also the way in which that they're mostly there for propagandistic purposes rather than to be able to generate their own substantial revenue. They're more of a kind of a loss leader, specifically in that regard, right? So, for example, GB News is funded by a hedge fund that has millions of dollars of investments in private healthcare firms. So what does GB News do? Publishes loads of segments undermining the NHS, promoting private healthcare. That's what these things do, right? And they have picked up these two commentators that I've responded to previously, Jess Gill and Reem Ibrahim. I've responded to and reacted to things that they have said on stream previously. And it's amazing that you can literally be any right-wing person. Like, I've commented on how Jess specifically, and Reem to a lesser extent, right? Reem not quite as much, but Jess very much so, are just very deeply uncharismatic people, but they are right-wing young people who have substantial platforms on the internet. So the Murdoch media and GB News as well, very happy to just lend these people new platforms out of nowhere. Just christen and baptize new right-wing media figures because they want to gain further media cultural hegemony overall, right? That's what they're there to do. That's what Talk TV and GB News are there for, to be able to create viral moments for ideological hegemony across the internet. Now, I'm going to respond to a statement that involves a segment that involves both of them, both Reem and Jess together at last. And this is from GB News. It's called "The Conservative Party Needs to Suffer," and it's their reaction to the autumn statement. And I've seen clips, or I've seen this segment on Twitter with quotes as part of the tweet. So I know they say some wild things in this interview. But we're gonna respond to that, and we'll see what they say.
What's your reaction to the budget, to the autumn statement? You must be, because I've spoken to you before, not very pleased.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's incredibly depressing to see.
It's also worth pointing out both of these people are libertarians. As far as I remember, if I remember correctly, I may be wrong, don't castigate me, future YouTube viewers. As far as I'm aware, Reem Ibrahim is a Randian libertarian, and Jess Gill is a Rothbardian libertarian, if I remember correctly.
The government suddenly now commit to huge amounts of taxation. We now have the highest tax burden on British record. It is just absurd that this is coming from a so-called Conservative government. Now, my primary issue with this is actually the way the tax burden is being shifted. The budget is incredibly redistributive, but this is no Robin Hood moment. The money is being stolen from young, hard-working people, well, not just young, all hard-working people, and being shifted. That money is being redistributed to those on universal credit and also pensioners. Now, I understand that many of these pensioners have paid into the system, and so they deserve to get that taken out. But unfortunately, what this has resulted in is that the triple lock means that they're getting much more than they would otherwise be getting if it wasn't for this incredible high inflation.
So it's generationally unfair. I've been thinking a bit about marginal...
Fair play. I think Reem is correct here in that things like the triple lock on pensions, which is probably necessary there, it's probably costs more to means test it, specifically so that only poor pensioners get hold of it. Especially, we have a kind of bubble of millionaire pensioners at the moment, but that's going to decline over time as our population ages and people with defined benefit private sector pensions leave the demographic, right? That's a nice way of putting it. So keeping the triple lock for now so that it exists later on, I think that's probably fine. But then having an additional cost of living payments for pensioners on top of how lucrative all the rest of their pensions are, I do believe that's unfair. And she's correct in her assertion that the vast majority, a lot of this tax burden is being placed on working people, especially young working people, because they've frozen the tax thresholds rather than putting them up with inflation and putting them up with wages. So she is correct in that there's a massive windfall for pensioners here off the backs of additional taxes on working people specifically as well, because a lot of the tax rises are on specifically income tax, which is earned wealth rather than, extracted wealth that you'd get from things like dividend payments and capital gains, etc.
Tax rates this morning. Are you paying a student loan yet? No.
No, I don't go to university.
You don't go to university. But just help me think about a student who has managed, after graduating, to earn enough money to start repaying the student loan. That's now gone up to, I think, 6.3%. It depends what system you're on. And they'll be paying
if you're a young person who gets past the first tax rate, you're now paying a higher marginal tax rate on your entire income than someone who's earning £125,000 a year. Like, that's crazy shit. That's absurd that students are paying that much in marginal tax rate.
Income tax as well. I mean, young people then, taking into account the student loan, will be paying some of the highest marginal tax rates of all the population.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a statement that completely hurts young people. It's painful to see my friends who have just gone out to university hoping to get...
I mean, Adam puts that in perspective, right? Pensioners like to vote Conservative, and young people don't vote Conservative at all, and probably aren't going to vote in Conservative anyway, if they do indeed vote at all. So they're correct in their assertions about who this particular budget is going to benefit. 100% correct in their assertions. But, you got what you wanted, right? You joined a party based upon, protecting the asset value of a wealthy boomer cohort, a very large wealthy boomer cohort, rather than something that invests in the future of the country. Because again, this is a political party that is always in election mode, always electioneering, right? Always in campaigning mode. And so why would they engage in any amount of economic policy that's beneficial to people who will never vote for them if they vote at all?
Into employment, finally get a job, and then they're hit with hard tax and also these other negatives that come.
It's almost like young people shouldn't vote for the fucking Conservative Party because they're never going to put their interests to heart anyway, right? Because young people are the least likely to be asset rich, which at the end of the day, even if there wasn't this incredibly large cohort of asset rich boomers that are an electoral force for the Conservatives, they also have to be able to ensure that they're delivering additional profits for their donor class, right? Who are mostly shareholders or business owners or CEOs, for example, and they want to ensure that they are not the ones who get saddled with additional tax burden, whether it be additional tax on dividend payouts or on capital gains or on corporation tax. Now, they have increased corporation tax, that's one thing, but the other things, especially for example, like dividends payouts, not touched, right?
Like with inflation, for example, it's completely unfair to young people. Why do we have to foot the bill so boomers can get a 10% increase in their pensions? I don't think that's fair. Young people are struggling choosing between heating or eating, struggling to pay their rent, mortgages to buy a house.
Oh, what's that? Is that another Conservative that got exactly what they fucking wanted? Is that another Conservative got literally exactly what they wanted by not supporting the Labour Party, who are proposing to build huge numbers of council houses to make renting more affordable? Is that literally you getting exactly what you wanted, Jess? Because it sounds like it is. Like, there you go. You told people to vote Conservative to stop the jam, man. Well, tough shit. Your rent's going to be really fucking high. Well done. That's what you wanted.
That's completely out of the picture. I don't think this is a long-term plan.
But what is the alternative? Because the sort of budget that you approved of more was put to us in, I think it was on September the 27th, just a couple of months ago. You saw the market reaction. It became impossible.
All right, Iron Mage, how you doing? Good to see you in chat.
Led to the sacking of the Chancellor and the resignation of the Prime Minister. So you're not being realistic, are you?
I mean, to me, this is an issue of morality. I don't think it's fair to young people.
Well, yeah, of course, absolutely. Young Conservatives are just dumb. But then again, Jess doesn't have to care, because she, as what is popped up now, host of the YouTube channel Reasoned, is getting funded, her YouTube channel is getting funded by a shell company in the name of Lance Foreman's son. So she has loads of money coming in from from incredibly rich people, getting gifted a media career by GB News and Talk TV. She doesn't have to care about the fact that young people are getting fucked over because she's right as rain. All the hedge fund managers that pay her wages to come on these talk shows. Rupert fucking Murdoch, who runs Talk TV, right? She's fucking minted. She's set. She doesn't have to care because she doesn't have a proper fucking job.
To have to pay this high tax burden when we need to focus on, buying a house. We need to focus on settling down, having children as soon as possible. I think that's how you create a stable economy. And to be hit with this massive tax burden, to be hit with inflation, to be hit with an increase in student loans, I don't think that's fair. I think taxation is extremely, well, it's theft, isn't it, realistically? And this Conservative government...
No, it isn't. Theft is what... Sorry, tax is what drives the demand for the money that you have, right? If the government wasn't taxing, there would be no value to the money that you hold because the government is the currency issuer. I mean, there are plenty of people, JDM, who do want to settle down and have children as soon as possible. I don't think that's necessarily a statement that I disagree with, right? But they can't afford to because the cost of living is far too high and wages are far too low, right? It's amazing how all the tradcons, right? All the tradcons will talk about things such as, for example, the fact that, people don't. I can't find a stay-at-home mum, right? I'm a man who's big in favour of having a traditional family unit where the man goes to work, the woman stays at home with the kids, right? But you can't have that future, rightoids, because you supported the neoliberal framework that depressed the wages of people in this country, so that you now can't afford to live and raise a family on a single income. You got what you wanted. That's literally what you wanted. I'm sorry, you can't complain about the lack of the lack of fucking future housewives. You can't. Desperately want a future trad wife, and you're not going to be able to get one because you have to be able to. You have to be able to have enough money to be able to support it on a single income. And wages have been driven down by a continual desire to be able to put the needs of shareholders over the needs of workers by breaking the backs of the union movement in the 80s. Like, I'm a feminist, so I don't care who it is. If I think, call me a tradcon if you want, right? I believe a household, if to raise children, is best when there are at least two parents. Ella Santa Enjoyer, welcome to the No Justice stream. I hope you're doing well, right? I think that households are best where there is at least two parents to raise the children. One person goes to work, or there is at least one person who can stay at home with the kids the whole time. I think that's a really good way of raising children. I have no prescriptions of which gender it is. House husband, housewife, house spouse, whatever. I don't care who stays at home with their kids. I have no gendered prescriptions on who that should be. But I do think that it's a better environment for raising children where you have somebody who is always available to be on hand, who's there to be able to provide emotional support, who's there to be able to be there through the entirety of the formative years of children's lives. And you can't have that if wages have been depressed so far and housing costs have skyrocketed forever due to garbage housing policy from consecutive neoliberal governments, to be able to support that on a single wage. So again, the neoliberals literally just got what they wanted, and the fabric of society is being torn apart because of it. It's so depressing, like how much societal damage outside of economics neoliberalism has done to this country. You actually think two people isn't enough to raise a child? There's a reason why grandparents look after kids so much if they can. Well, true. I mean, that's what kind of you look at traditional households, right? Like the reason why the homelessness rate in Cuba, for example, is so low is the multi-generational families will live in the same house and they will share childcare responsibilities amongst each other, right? It also doesn't help that the Cuban government doesn't build enough houses either to be able to give people additional spare houses. But that's just a cultural thing. I think that's good. I think that is good, right? This, again, individualistic neoliberal desire for everyone to have their own individual house rather than have multi-generational housing is also what is there, has been specifically pushed as a policy platform to be able to drive competition for houses, to drive up housing prices, to protect the equity and the asset value of the boomer generation who got gifted housing in the 80s. I mean, yeah, neoliberalism is definitely to blame. 100% JDM. it's just, I cannot fully express just how much I get incredibly irritated by our economic system and the people who purport to have these social and cultural values about the way our society should be structured and then supporting an economic system that completely diverges from that. Being a conservative, a socially conservative neoliberal at this point is completely untenable. You just can't do it. There's no possibility to get that done. That's why you actually see better, childcare, parent-child contact with regards to childcare in the social democracies, where you get better maternity pay, where people are paid better, where union density is higher. Minimum of 2 or 3 primary caregivers is best. Yeah, 100%, Iron Mage, 100%.
Government has proven that they don't care about young people. I think the Conservative Party should die, quite frankly, because, well, they're not conservative, they're not for the free market. What do they actually stand for? I think this is the first Conservative...
How are they not for the free market? Additional taxes is not anti the free market, right? They're not engaging in additional regulation. They're not nationalising parts of the economy. They're not doing anything. The free market is literally doing exactly what it was before. All they're just doing is ensuring that there is additional funds going into the exchequer and also using taxation as an ability to control aggregate demand. Now, I don't believe necessarily that we do need as higher taxation to curb aggregate demand. I think it's fine though. I'm not going to complain about there being higher taxes, especially since the majority of the population now do also want to see higher taxes and better public spending, right? But of course, it's not like a household budget where you have to have money in to be able to get money out. That's not how taxation works. But, there does need, I do necessarily think that during inflationary periods, you should raise taxes. I think that's something that you should do. Like, as someone who's been essentially sold MMT by JDM in chat, so...
government to not have a vision in a long time. I think that would be so...
But but again, that's just, like, that's not changing the function of the free market, right? In fact, they're being pro-free market because they want these fucking investment zones to get extra stuff out of Brexit, right? One of the Brexit dividends, the Brexit bonuses that we're supposed to be getting, it is the fact that they are removing kind of the capital buffers. They're drastically reducing the capital buffers on insurance companies' investment portfolios, where they're allowed to take more risks with the financial investments they make with insurance premiums, which is just another fucking global financial crisis waiting to happen. But this time not global, entirely contained within Europe, because they ditched Solvency II from the European Union kind of economic agreements, right? We're going to get to the point at which the government's going to have to fucking start bailing out insurance companies because they decided to take what tiny bit of regulation that we did have over insurance companies and throw it in the fucking trash. Local taxes in the States are money in and money out, which is why the American schools are such shit. Yeah, it's an absolute fucking mess. Like, devolution is good up to a point, right? But when there's such a gigantic disconnect between how state budgets are managed and how federal money gets driven by the central bank, it's crazy shit. Some states will literally reject federal money just to screw off their own population. Yeah, it's absolutely insane, right? And they keep getting fucking elected.
So disappointed.
I'll just remind viewers that we're talking to 2 young Conservatives here.
Yeah, but I think maybe resigning your party membership might be the first step of killing off the party. But look...
Extended kinship and friendship networks are also good for raising kids. Worked in my Cornish family. You're right about the wider effects of neoliberalism, though. Yeah, 100%. I do believe that, and the collective raising of children. I mean, that's what happens in what Marx would call primitive communism times, right?
I think that this is unrealistic. We've got to think about, young people. We can sort of sit and cry and say that the tax burden is incredibly high, which it is, and we are struggling as a result of it. But the solution was this long-term free market solution, right? Liz Truss had the right idea, but she went
No, it really wasn't. It really wasn't the long-term solution. We've had free market solutions for 43 fucking years, right? We've had that. And as I said, you look at what they're doing with Solvency II, they're still trying this kind of stuff. Things like the free ports that Rishi Sunak wants to open, these investment zones, nay, tax haven areas that they want to be able to create to drive investment, for example. And that's not the solution. That just isn't the solution, right? How is additionally making the market more free going to solve, for example, something like the housing crisis? I went over the failures of over-marketisation of housing in the previous stream, in the previous segment that I did. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. If it's, for example, things where the supply and demand curve is inelastic, such as you know, for example, housing and energy, there's going to have to be state intervention to bring these down. Like, the one good part, actually there were two good parts of the fiscal statement from Liz Truss. The first one was a supply side reform, which was increasing immigration. But I've not heard Reem Ibrahim or Jess talk about fucking increased immigration, because then they know that GB News' audience don't want to fucking hear it, because that is a supply side reform that will generate additional growth. And as I've said before, it's not going to be something that will depress wages either. And the second thing was the energy price guarantee. And the energy price guarantee was fiscal expansion from the government that actually brought down inflation, right? That was something that was going to make life easier for everybody in the country overall, especially considering the inflationary pressures. And these people are like, oh no, we need more free market, less state intervention. It's nonsense. They haven't got a fucking clue. Again, this is all just, you know, some new ideological framework, but they're so tied to this ideology that they just, at the point at which they're just like, oh well, you know, the Conservative government, unless they literally privatise everything and go full on neoliberal, right? Go full on where the only function of the state is to maintain competitive markets. Because I know both Jess and Reem Ibrahim want to privatise the NHS. They do. Like, Reem is proposing the Singapore model, which is an insurance-based system. I've not known what Jess specifically says about the NHS, but they both believe the NHS should be privatised. They both believe that shit, right? It's the last thing to sell off. Like, how much more free market do you need to go other than selling off the last state-owned enterprise that we have in the form of the NHS? This is nonsense.
Too hard and fast, no OBR forecast. Of course the markets were going to react badly. I think what we forget also, another reason why the markets reacted so awfully was a result of this huge amount of spending with the energy price guarantee. Essentially a socialist...
Well, that's not true, though. That's not true. There was no market reaction when the energy price guarantee was announced before the fiscal event, right? The energy price guarantee was going to bring down inflation, and it didn't spook the markets at all, right? The markets were spooked on the day of the fiscal event when people who had invested in government bonds had realised that the people who was actually in control of the budget didn't have a fucking clue what they were doing. And they were like, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to massively increase the money supply by engaging in this long-term fiscal expansion to do the energy price guarantee, which, to be fair, was going to bring down inflation on the supply side, right? And then at the same time said, we're also going to cut huge amounts of taxes. Like, it's, and therefore further inflating overall demand in the economy. Of course the markets were going to react badly once you'd announced the dumb tax cuts that didn't make any sense and that will completely uncost it, at the same time as getting involved in additional borrowing, right? And we look at the bond yields now. We look at future inflationary figures moving forward. We look at, how the markets are reacting to the current budget, which is exactly the same, the energy price guarantee with some additional taxation, and they're therefore absolutely fine with it. It's not the energy price guarantee that is the problem. It's the low taxes that were the problem. Demand elasticity in the housing market disproves any argument about the benefit of free market policies, especially since the suppliers of apartments are often large management firms which are already price setters. Exactly, 100%. That's what I was saying before about the people expecting house prices to fall now that interest rates have gone up. Don't quite understand how fucked the housing market is, where as soon as there is a slight drop in housing prices, people who already have high levels of asset investment in houses will then further invest in making cash purchases on additional houses as the price goes down to make sure that their current investments continue to accumulate value. It's the lack of a plan that was the real problem. Markets like security and plans and hate uncertainty. Yeah, 100% JDM. What we had wasn't a fiscal crisis, it was a crisis of confidence in the government's economic management competence. Exactly. That's why they didn't care about the energy price guarantee when it was announced. They cared once the fiscal statement was read out and they realised the government was run by fucking clowns, right? That's when they really had the issue. They really had the issue.
Energy policy, right? It's a blanket approach. We're looking at energy across the board, and every single unit of energy use is being subsidised in the exact same way, no matter where you come from, no matter how much money you actually have yourself. So I think that actually the solution is to look at pensions, look at the energy price guarantee, look at where we're spending our money, and means test it.
I mean, the issue with the energy price guarantee is it just went into the purchasing end and the retail end, rather than actually in the production end, which is where the bottleneck is, right? It is the gas producers, so the gas energy producers, having to pay for the extortionate price of global wholesale gas prices that's causing the issue, right? They actually would have been able to save money on the energy price guarantee, but instead of subsidizing on the retail end, if they'd subsidized on the supply end for the gas power plants, right, they could have bought gas at global wholesale prices and sold it at a loss to the gas producers, thereby keeping prices low by stymieing the price increase for the specific sector of energy production that has seen the raw materials that they need to produce energy increase. Whereas at the moment, and the renewable energy would have stayed the same, whereas at the moment on the back end, they're giving a huge windfall to the gas power plants are maintaining their current level of profit. The gas extractors are getting huge amounts of profit, but also the renewable sector is getting huge amounts of profit as well. Because remember, we pay price per unit. And that's split up between everything coming from the national grid in its entirety. We don't pay based upon where our energy comes from. So we're actually spending huge amounts of money with the fiscal expansion from the energy price guarantee, gifting huge amounts of additional windfall profits to the renewable energy sector. And that's, to be fair, to his benefit, why Jeremy Hunt actually had a big windfall tax for renewable energy producers, but he should have attacked the gas extractors, specifically in the North Sea, a lot harder, but he didn't. That's a bad thing that he did do.
Only those that need it are able to actually get that subsidy from the taxpayer. Everybody else that can afford it, pay it themselves. The tax burden is not lying on young people.
What about the National Health Service? It seems to me that this is the cuckoo in the nest. I mean, 10 percentage points of public...
I'm looking forward to what they're going to say about what they want to do with the NHS. Definitely haven't heard really scary arguments from them before.
...spending is a very large amount of money. And of course, it is squeezed out...
Well, it's obviously means testing costs money to be able to implement, which a lot of the time costs more than just having a universal policy. Although I think that something like means testing for energy bills might be something that you might be able to save money on. I'd need to see the maths. I'm not going to make a sweeping statement right now.
Defence spending, education spending, police, immigration spending, and it's leading to tax rises. And yet the Conservative Party seems to have shown no interest in managing the health service budget. I mean, we heard David Merrill making a perfectly reasonable point there, that there is best practice, well, there certainly used to be best practice, that ought to be replicated across the system. I hear no move towards that.
And that is true, JDM, yeah. Energy prices going up because of oil and gas companies taking shitloads of money from the governments that was meant to retain supply capacity over the downturn due to COVID. Well, yeah, and they also just got rid of gas supply, right? But even if they hadn't done, even if that wasn't something that happened, even if they hadn't reduced their overall capacity, we still would be having an energy crisis right now because overall, European wholesale prices are much higher because both, OPEC and Russia have turned the taps off, thereby meaning the vast majority of oil in the European market is coming from the North Sea, which is some private companies and also the Norwegian government. So the supply is still constrained, but it would have been less constrained had they not done that. Yeah, I absolutely agree.
At all.
I think the NHS is this sort of sacred cow that any time anybody tries to reform it, you'll know this very well with Thatcher, she didn't dare touch the NHS.
Correct.
And so I think
the oil is low because I think, that's something that they did have lots of stock of. It's a gas crisis rather than an oil crisis. But I think you're right, JDM, yeah. But also the issue is that this is all set on futures contracts that were all organised a year ago. So we're having to pay for speculative prices based upon the fact that Ofgem's rules on bargaining between energy firms doesn't even fucking work. So, yeah, it's a whole fucking mess.
I think that it's incredibly politically impossible to actually reform the NHS in any way. In my view, the NHS needs serious reform, and I mean institutional reform, free market reforms. Let people choose what kind of healthcare system that they would like, rather than it being completely... the NHS is like a bubble.
I mean, you literally can already choose. If you don't want to use the NHS, you can go and use private. Just fucking sign up to Bupa, Reem. Stop trying to attack our National Health Service that poor people rely on. I know that you don't have to care anymore now that you're getting fucking fat checks from, free market think tanks and, private equity-sponsored news organisations, right? I know that you don't have to care, but the rest of us on the fucking bottom rung of the ladder, Reem, we actually have to have access to the fucking NHS. So stop trying to attack it based upon the fact that you don't use it.
blown up and we pump more money into it. And it's a broken system. It's a bureaucratic.
But we're not pumping more money into it. That's the big lie out of all of this, right? More money overall has gone into it, but as a percentage of GDP, it has gone down. It's the longest sustained drop in NHS funding as a percentage of GDP since its inception over the last 12 years, right? It's being deliberately underfunded, right, based upon the size of the economy and the size of the population. It's being deliberately underfunded to be able to make this rhetoric stick, so that people do look at the NHS and say, oh, well, it must need reform because it's bad, even though the reform that happened was not enough money being put into it, right? They say, oh, it's just this, this black hole of the NHS. I'm like, no, it's being underfunded, deliberately so, to justify the privatisation that you're talking about now. That's what happens when you put free marketeers in charge of public services, because they ideologically are opposed to public services, and so will deliberately defund them to be able to justify privatisation.
Black hole that we keep throwing taxpayer money at.
Jess, if you are in despair, and you've told us very clearly that you are you off to a different party? Is there a different party? Could there be a different party in the future?
Well, I'm not very hopeful about other parties. Honestly, I'd like to see more from Reform and Reclaim, but I've not really seen that which will make me vote for them. I don't think I'll vote Conservative if I do it, because I really like my MP, Chris Green. I think he's a really cool guy. But generally, this is the issue, and I think this is why we need PR, because we've been stuck between these two parties which basically stand for the same thing, and it's basically socialism, let's be honest.
There we go, that's the dumb line that I was waiting for. The governments, they do some taxing and some spending, which is basically socialism. They're engaging in fiscal expansion with a fiat currency. That's basically socialism. These people haven't got a fucking clue. Having to engage on a political science level with libertarians, especially people like Rothbardians, like Jess is, it's just completely fucking impossible. Absolutely impossible. When they're just like, oh, well, the government is doing things, that's socialism, right? There's a fiat currency, that's social. There's social programs, that's socialism. Taxes have gone up, that's socialism, right? They have, ironically, the same view of socialism as Stalin does. Socialism is when the government does stuff, and the more stuff it does, the socialister it is, and when the government does all the stuff, that's communism, right? Despite the fact that our governments have got less and less involved in the economy over time. We're going to come on to the sale of a Royal Mail. That happened under the Conservative government, as we've got at the moment. During the pandemic, we privatised even more of the NHS, stealthily, because of the issues with the pandemic. And that's not getting reversed. In fact, not getting reversed by the Labour Party, because Wes Streeting is getting money from private healthcare providers to make sure that that doesn't happen. So much so that Kate, whatever her name is, the one who was on the American one from The Spectator, who was on Question Time, was saying that she had an article of Kate Andrews in The Spectator, was saying that she was applauding Wes Streeting for being further right on the NHS than the Tories are, but being serious about reform, i.e. privatisation. From the IEA, from the people who tanked the economy with the free market libertarian budget that these idiots are trying to say was a good thing. I'm going to lose my fucking mind. For people who are watching who might have just stumbled onto my channel, right? Socialism is when the workers control the means of production, right? It is not when the government taxes and spends. Capitalist governments, not even social democratic or third way governments, neoliberal governments tax and spend at least somewhat, right? Where do you think the fucking police service and the fire service, and where do you think all of these things come from? They come from taxation, right? Or theft, as Jess would call it. And even neoliberal governments do that. Iron Mage with the membership. Thank you very much for re-upping your membership. Good to have you back on stream. Even if what you said about pumping more money into the NHS was true, it would still cost more to be private. Just look at how it is in the US. Well, exactly, right? They pay way more than we do on a personal basis for their own healthcare because it comes out of pocket. And they even pay more in other countries, for example, Switzerland. Switzerland pay more money in healthcare than we do. Loads of countries in Europe already pay more money in healthcare than we do, with some kind of mixed insurance-based system, right? We have a more efficient system. It just does not have enough money into it because it's being deliberately underfunded. David Cameron specifically said that the purpose of austerity was to shrink the state, and it worked fantastically. Yeah, 100%. 100%, right? If, for example, the Conservatives were coming up and saying we were renationalising some industry, right? Then you might be able to call them like social democratic at a push, right? Or third way. But how you can describe this as anything other than just neoliberalism, but neoliberalism where they're focusing specifically on electioneering, where they know they can't win in the next election unless they get good public services for the country. That's the only reason why the taxes are increasing. Like, the only reason taxes are increasing is because the British public expect good public services, right? They've always expected good public services, and they've always been given it, but now the government can't afford it on their terms, right? In the 80s, after the neoliberal reforms, we had huge amounts of oil money coming in when we struck gold in the North Sea. In the 90s and 2000s, we had Blair using PFIs to be able to subsidise the fact that there wasn't enough money coming into the Exchequer to fund public services under a Keynesian model. And then when David Cameron came in, they started doing austerity and started cutting public services, so much so Jeremy Corbyn happened in 2017, and suddenly the paradigm switched again, and people realised that public services needed funding better. And so now the public will is in that way. So the Conservative government is like, oh, okay, well, if the population wants better public services, I guess we're going to have to give it to them because they want to win the fucking election, right? It's very fucking simple. Don't get me started on Wes Streeting. He's one of the real entries in Labour. I fucking hate Wes Streeting. My God, he is the worst. The fucking worst member of the Labour Party who isn't Neil Coyle or Keir Starmer. Fucking awful. I hate Wes Streeting and his pasty face. He does a really good job, right? He does a really good job of seeming like some incredibly innocent, fresh-faced Saturday kid at Dixon's whilst being an incredibly scheming snake in the background. He's awful. He's really, really bad and conniving. But that's a story for another time. But it just shows just how brain dead a lot of these, not brain dead, because clearly people like Jess and Reem are smart people, right? They both have, they're both well educated and they're both pretty erudite in the opinions that they form. But they're so completely ideologically captured by their libertarian ideology that they literally think that anything other than that must be socialism. When we're not even getting socialism from Keir Starmer. We're not even getting social democracy from Keir Starmer. The amount of self-declared social democrats saying that they're going to support Keir Starmer, even though that he is literally not a social democrat. Like, social democracy is when the state acts on behalf of the workers to be able to bargain against capital within a capitalist system, right? Whilst also engaging in some amount of nationalisation, some amount of selective decommodification, whilst keeping the commodity form and keeping free markets and some private ownership of the means of production. That's social democracy, right? Social democracy is not taxing and spending. Neither is socialism. It's barely, as I said, it's barely even third way at this point. Although I do think that we're getting closer to some kind of third-way consensus politics now that Jeremy Hunt and Rachel Reeves are basically offering the same fucking thing. They're both saying, oh, we're going to have growth with infrastructure projects, which, fine, do the infrastructure projects based, we need them. But we're going to have, neither of them are offering like a root and branch change of the economy that we actually need to make the society work for working people, and especially young people that Jess and Reeves seem to tell us that they care about, despite the fact they have no actual solutions to make our lives better. They really don't. They just don't.
And I think to young people, like Thatcher won the youth vote, didn't she? And I think young people want a vision. They want something radical. And I think the Conservatives...
Well, I mean, yeah, they do want something radical. What they want is fucking their actual socialism. Or not even that. They want social democracy. They want what Corbyn was putting down. Like, look at the voting records in 2017, right? They picked up what he was putting down. Very, very... Like, millennials are the most socialist generation in British history, probably, right? We want left-wing politics. We do not want your Thatcherite dog shit.
Conservative Party should embrace that.
I understand some of what you're saying, but I would have thought PR would be exactly likely to produce this sort of, middle-of-the-road social democracy where you can't distinguish the parties.
There's no social democracy. What have we selectively decommodified other than the NHS? Nothing. Social democracy is when there's a workers' party on to be able to bargain on behalf of the working class against the bourgeois. I cannot deal with Conservatives who don't even know the political science terms that they fucking use. Well, that's the point, is that they keep talking about aspiration, but they won't give people the social safety net that they need to be able to take the risks to be able to aspire to anything. I'm going to make this point on every stream for the rest of my life, that if you really, really, really want an aspirational society under capitalism, what you want is social democracy. And that is equality of opportunity, right? Or equity and opportunity, right? Equality of opportunity means that people can have access to whatever opportunities that they want, but equity of opportunity is making sure that those opportunities are equally attainable for everyone, or as equal as they can be in a system where you fucking, inherit millions of pounds from your rich parents without doing anything. And just, these people give me an aneurysm. They'll give me a fucking aneurysm. And it just shows how much neoliberal brain rot has destroyed the economic minds of a lot of people in society, where we have literal, legacy conservative candidates who've been MPs, they've been cabinet members, they've been on politics shows on the BBC calling the Conservative Party a social democratic party. Like, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind. When you raise the floor, more people can reach the ceiling. That's a great turn of phrase that I'm going to use forever. 100%. 100%. The ceiling may be relatively lower, right? Like, people may not be able to aspire to be fucking, people who live off of passive income forever and live in, some gigantic McMansion in the south of France, right? Sure, maybe that level of decadence is not going to be available to everybody. But I think a world is better where more people have a good standard of living than when the ability to get an incredible standard of living is not being curtailed at the expense of people who have shit standards of living. Maybe, again, that's my utilitarian framework, I guess. Which you have to convince people of. I think most people in the UK would agree with that. I think it's difficult to put that across to people overall. God, I made that 6-minute segment last 40 minutes because my mind broke. My mind absolutely broke. You strongly argue that the ceiling of the current system is incredibly unfulfilling anyway. Well, yeah, true. Like, we have data on this that shows that once you reach like twice the median income or whatever, at least what it is right now, like, additional income after that doesn't make you any happier. Like, not having to deal with money worries certainly increases your happiness, but getting, filthy fucking rich doesn't make you happier than being well off, being, comfortably middle class, right? And that's why countries like Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Iceland are the happiest countries in the world. Like, I'm not gonna lie, obviously I'm still a Marxist, right? But I've definitely become a social democrat more of a social democrat over time than like a revolutionary socialist, because like the evidence shows us that the Nordic countries will tell you just how much of a good existence that you can provide for everybody if you just have an equitable economic system, right? It doesn't have to be full communism for everyone to be happy. Like, is it sustainable long term? Probably not. Does it deal with the issues of economic imperialism and exploiting the global south to maintain that standard of living? No, that doesn't fix that. And that's why internationalism is so important, right? You don't necessarily have to be a revolutionary communist to be an internationalist. Yeah, being too rich is a pain in the ass, just takes over your life and fucks up any relaxed existence you could have. Well, look, the best example of this, I did a segment about how Alan Sugar is getting mad, absolutely fucking seething with rage on the Bird app because he wants people to go back into the office because he thinks that it's better. But it's not because he thinks that it's better, it's because he has huge amounts of money invested in retail office space. He has commercial property investments that are now going down in value. He doesn't need to care. He's so rich he could retire right now and just live in fucking Saint-Tropez drinking pina coladas and being happy, enjoying his wealth. But it's these people, the wealth consumes these people's lives so much that they now have to ruin everyone else's lives to make sure that they maintain their investment value. These people are pathological in their pursuit of wealth at the detriment of society. And again, another function of the societal breakdown of the base of neoliberalism to the overall structure of society. It's very simple, right? You teach society through economics, as Margaret Thatcher did, right? The method is economics, the desire is to change the soul, and you've created a country full of soulless fucks who care only about monetary gain. And why wouldn't? When you've taught people like Alan Sugar that once you get that rich, you can just live off that for a fucking you have to continue aspiring to be the richest person in the fucking world, looking at Sunday Times rich lists, caring about which position you're on. Like, be happy. You're filthy rich. I would be having orgies every fucking day, drinking cocktails on the beach and forgetting about my retail property my commercial property investments. It can't be a good life. It can't be a good life being that fucking jaded than to spend your entire life moaning at poor people on Twitter for wanting to still work from home rather than be back in the office. which I'm glad I'm not going to have to do as we now permanently work from home. But even so, like, it's just a bad society, bad system. Also, if you're watching YouTube viewers, you can become a member for just 99p. That gets you access to emotes, and I will love you forever for the low cost of 99p. If you don't want to be able to become a member, you can at least subscribe and like the stream. If you click the bell icon, it will notify you when I go live in future. And if you're watching on Twitch, you can drop bits. You can subscribe for $3.99 for all of the emotes, more than you get on YouTube. And you can also press #donate in chat to be able to make one-time donations. You do not have to. It is never expected, but always appreciated.